this word that I'm sure you're familiar with, but I said the reason is because of tech fluency. They all looked at me like, tech fluency. I said, think about what happens to a kid from the time they're 3 years old to the time they're 17 years old. They're picking up their phone, they're picking up a tablet, they're learning these skills. And I laid the whole thing out of what happens to a kid and the things that they are learning, not just how to play, but how to build things, how to buy skins. That's crypto, basically. How to buy skins, how to sell things in the marketplace. They're learning networking, not just people in the United States, but around the world. They're learning how to overcome challenges. They're learning how to deal with defeat. They're learning how to negotiate. They're learning how to sometimes build PCs. Sometimes they're learning how to build little apps and little software. I said, the reason why every company in our city and in your city is a tech company, at the end of the day, they have to do technology. You're going to have to hire tech people from somewhere. So rather than us pulling people from outside of Springfield, why don't we invest in what people already love in this city, which is video games, and have those people realize, oh my goodness, these big companies care about what we're doing. Guess what? They're going to go to work for you. And they're going to get trained 100% free by playing video games. You don't have to do anything for them. They're going to know more than you know. You just hire them. So rather than pushing them away, pull them in and invest in tech fluency. And I think that's what every city in America should do.
Welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by NetCertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. NetCertive's Madeline Park talks shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art of Franchise Marketing. I've got I don't want to say interesting because interesting always sounds bad, but I got a really cool one for you today. But I always sound like, oh, I have an interesting, I have a cool. Yes. I've got a great one for you today. And we've got Brett here, Brett Payne. He's the founder of Contender Esports, but has a long-standing history in the franchise space. So we'll get completely into it. But first and foremost, Brett, thanks for joining me. Tell people who you are. Tell them your history, why we're here.
Clearly, I have to make it interesting now because you suggested such a thing. So I live in Springfield, Missouri, and I am married and have 4 sons. We were just talking about our children a moment ago, but I have a 30-year-old son, a 28-year-old son, a 22-year-old son, and a 10-year-old son. So the older ones are gone, but the young one keeps me very, very busy. And yeah, I have been in franchising for a long time. And before that, I lived, after I got out of the university, I moved to the Ukraine and spent a decade there doing work and then other business and things like that. So it's interesting how life gets you from one place to another. But here we are with you.
Yeah, here we are. And, you know, it's interesting because I always tell people how'd you get, I always ask, I should say, how'd you get into franchising? Because it's never like, I climbed the corporate ladder and then I went to franchising. No. I took a franchising course and got into franchising. It's always like, I slipped and fell and here I am. That's the plan. So how did you get into franchising? You know, talk us through a little bit about your history there.
Yeah. So I as I said, I worked in Ukraine. I worked in nonprofits and education, all kinds of things for years. And then I ended up running that transition over to something else. I ended up running a software company out of England for a long time and had offices around the world and had a great time with that. Just loved it. That shifted again. And I was doing some marketing things. I started a marketing agency, and then a friend of mine who was just texting me, by the way, said, can you come by and see me at this place I have called Classic Rock Coffee here in Springfield? And I said, of course. You know, I used to go there and hang out. It's like Hard Rock Cafe, but for coffee. And so I went and hung out with Kent, and Kent said, you know, I think I want to franchise this thing. I said, cool. He goes, do you know anything about franchising? And I said, no. And he goes, do you think you can franchise it for me? I said, of course. So I left that meeting and I knew zero, but I realized I had to figure this out, and I studied it and figured it out and put together a plan and came back to him. The only thing that was in my favor, Madeline, is that I then knew more than he knew about franchising. So anything that I told him, he just took that as authoritative. So, so I said, yeah, we'll do it. So I had not any idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't know what a franchise disclosure document was. I didn't know legal. I didn't know any of that. And I spent a couple months putting all that together, not really having people to talk to. I didn't know anybody in the franchising space at all. I had one guy that I knew that was kind of a help to me. What I did know about was marketing. And so, and I knew about sales and operations and basically living up to what you say you're going to promise. And Kent had a great business with Classic Rock Coffee. So put it all together. And I walked in his office one day and said, where would you like to market this thing? And he said, I don't care. Where do you want to market it? And I go, we should market it all over the world. So that's what we did. And within about 2 months, I had so many inquiries. I'm like, what in the world am I supposed to do with this? But within a couple of months, I said to Kent, I have somebody I have to go pick up at the airport. And so I went and got this gentleman. His name was Suhaib Azim. He's a friend of mine now. Picked him up at the airport here in Springfield, in the middle of nowhere, Springfield, Missouri. Drove him over to Classic Rock Coffee, and we passed a huge facility that we have here. And he said, what's the name of that resort? And I said, it's not a resort, it's a federal penitentiary. And he goes, we don't have anything like that in my country. So we got to Classic Rock Coffee, and within 2 days, we signed a master franchise agreement for the country of Pakistan. Wow. So that was the first franchise I ever sold in my entire life. At which point, I then went to Kent and said, we need to go to Pakistan. So I didn't have any trainers or anything with passport, nothing. So had to put that all together, and off we went. And we opened our first franchise location in Islamabad. And I jokingly said to people, we should have T-shirts that say Classic Rock Coffee, 2 convenient locations, Springfield, Missouri, and Islamabad, Pakistan. I never made the T-shirt. But what I did learn, Madeline, is I remember the flight back thinking, if I can sell a franchise in Pakistan, I can sell a franchise anywhere. And so we ended up putting that all over the world. We put them all over the world in the most remote places you can imagine, and big places as well. I built a lot of rapport in the Middle East. I did a lot of work in the Middle East as a result of that. And then I ended up on a phone call in 2018 with some business people in Asia. And in the middle of the conversation, which was not about franchising, they mentioned this term that I had never heard before. They said esports. And I didn't know if it was E-sports. I didn't know if it was E. I didn't know it was capital. I knew nothing. Got off the call, became very distracted while I was trying to work on the coffee franchise, and Googling things and all these and realized and looked, what is an esports franchise? I just Googled esports franchise, and the Google results were 0. And I had never seen that on a Google result before. So I thought, this is interesting. I think there might be an opportunity here. So I ran around the country, learned about esports, put together a good team, and then we started Contender Esports in the end of 2018. So that's what I've been doing. We've got locations around. I again, still working in the Middle East. I've got offices there in Riyadh. We've got offices in Brazil. It's been a great thing. That has been a lot of fun, lots of smart people. It's an industry that it's challenging because it changes all the time. And then that parlayed into something that another company that I have called salessystem.ai, which we started about 8 or 9 months ago, because we had other franchisors come to us and say, how are you doing all this stuff? And you don't have a big staff, because I don't. It's a very small staff. And it was because of automation. I had built all these things probably because I was, off in the Ukraine in the 90s, having to hack my way through things. Yeah. But we built a massive amount of automation for these things. And so we call this thing salessystem.ai. Franchisors coming to us asking, can we help them to market and to sell, all the way from finding people to close the entire thing without their involvement really that much. And then also we train franchise brokers as a result, because, I saw so many brokers come and go because they knew the foundations of the industry. But when they left the association meetings and things like that, they would sit and look at their computer and go, I don't know how to find anybody. And I'm losing control of the sale. And it's scary because sometimes they're working with franchisors that, are really good at gutter installation, but they're not that great at selling franchises. Yeah. And so brokers were terrified. Well, some of them that we talked to, that it was a tough thing. I said, well, let's solve these problems for you, but we'll just teach you the whole thing. So I don't know if any of that's interesting, but that's what I do.
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to make the t-shirt for you that says 2 convenient locations.
Yes.
So I have a lot of, questions spanning off of that, and it's great. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, which I think we already have at some point.
Yeah, we have.
I think it's great that where you're at right now, you've managed to, I don't want to say by accident, but, put together, a love of tech, a love of travel, a love of family and kids and business and franchising, and kind of mold it all together, which I think is really a beautiful thing that happens in franchising that not a lot of people talk about. So my first question, because I know people are going to ask, is you started franchising Classic Rock Coffee.
Yeah.
Why international? Because I'm sure a lot of people would say, why would you even try that? Why wouldn't you just go national to start? And two, you said you had a lot of interest out of the gate. What did you do on a marketing side? And you don't have to get into the nitty gritty, but what was that strategy like to even create that? Because, I have a lot of emerging brand friends, and it's tough. It's a struggle to find those qualified candidates. So to hear that you had so much lead gen out of the gate is really unique and interesting.
Yeah, it's really that kind of simple principle to follow the money, right? So when I started marketing, it was all digital marketing. So, it's paid ads, and, you're using the platforms that were available at the time, and those platforms change all the time. And I had been in marketing before I was a dabbler. So I like to fiddle with things and, work the numbers and figure it out. And I don't use marketing companies and all that kind of stuff because I don't like to lose control over it. I like to sort it out myself and be creative and that kind of thing. So, I built the campaigns all digital, primarily Facebook, as I said, a little bit of Instagram, things like that. And, when you basically say, you can select what countries you want to market to, and you figure out you just learn it over time. Mm-hmm. And I started to get inquiries, and I think you learn by the questions that people are asking. So, people are emailing, they're leaving comments on things, they're asking all these things, and you just learn the patterns of people and what their needs are and the things that are interesting. And there are a lot of really smart, incredible business people or people that are just interested in the industry that if you take the time to respond to them quickly, like I have a rule with me and my guys, the first 5 minutes of an inquiry is critical mass. Drop everything you're doing and respond. People respond in different ways. Some people like phone calls, some people like email, some people like text messages, some people like WhatsApp, some people like social media. So you have to be familiar in all of these, and you have to be flexible enough to know which one they're going to respond to, and then use that for them, like speak the language that they speak. So, and that depends on your brands, right? If you have a brand that reaches out to young people, don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, because if they're under 25, they don't even have an account. So, and you're wasting all your energy on that. So, you have to learn their language. Sometimes the language is TikTok. Sometimes the language is Snapchat. Sometimes it just depends. So with the international stuff, the inquiries were coming in, and I could see what I could tell you right now. If you wanted to really sell something, I could tell you what countries to go to, because there are countries with really innovative people. And there are some countries that I have to stop marketing to for periods of time because there are way too many inquiries. You just can't manage all of it. But then the question is, how do you do the legal things, right? How do you establish the brand? Once you sell it, because you can do this, it's easy now, DocuSign, all this kind of stuff. That's easy. How do you get money over? Wiring money from different countries is very difficult. Well, how can you get that money from one place to another with the franchise fees and, people, currencies and all these kinds of things? You just kind of, you have to experiment and realize that people just want to be transparent. So, my phone goes off nonstop because, and I jokingly tell people, I guarantee you 100% I have more Mohammeds in my phone than you do, because of my work in the Middle East. It's true. And so, but they all wish I know all the holidays of different things in different countries and all that kind of stuff, because I try to, like you, I start off telling you about my family, right? So Let's just be real. I love having all these friends all over the world. I love it. And a lot of them haven't done business with me, but they know up front, I tell them, look, this may work out and this may not. And if it does work out, great. And if it doesn't, we found another friend. And that's super cool with me because life is short and that's what we should do. So I'm trying to gather as many friends as possible. It's not all related to money, but sometimes it does turn into business. And that's great. I want it to be good for them. And for me, I'm not worried about any country. There's a couple countries, I don't want to say on this video, but there's a couple countries where I won't do work in because we can't, right? In the United States. Yeah. But outside of those, you know, when I'm putting coffee houses in, you know, Kathmandu or in Abuja, Nigeria, or in, you know, a lot of Muslim countries where people sit at the airport with me and they're like, are you sure we should go there? I'm like, why would we not go there? They're fantastic places, really smart people. And again, I do think that a lot of brands are terrified to go outside of the United States because they're just unfamiliar with it. What I would say is try it. You can do paid ads digitally offshore for a fraction of the cost of the United States, a fraction. So I can get leads from different countries for 2, 3, 4 cents.
Wow.
Legit ones where people here are like, I'm paying a portal $75 a lead. Well, I mean, you could take that $75 and you could go, you know what? I really want to focus in on, you know, just name a country, or they could, if somebody from this video can contact me, I can do that and I can build momentum. And it could be through numbers, but somewhere you're going to find somebody that is interested and that is qualified. And now it's very different from 10 years ago or 15 years ago when I started this, because now who cares where you are? You can jump on a Google Meet or jump on a Zoom, or it doesn't make any difference, right? Everybody has it. There's no restrictions. Everybody has a mobile phone. Every country outside the United States has faster internet than we do. None of these are issues anymore. So we just have to be confident enough to say, will my brand work in this country? And if it does go in that country, what adjustments do I need to make sure it's appropriate for that country, right? Because there are cultural things that you just can't violate, and we need to be very careful about those kind of things. And I think if you're transparent and say, look, let's see if we can do this, then there's massive opportunity in the world. And a lot of franchisors should be thinking about this if they have something that is appropriate outside the United States.
You know, Brett, I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that you're following the money, but it's not all about the money. You know, it's about making friends. It's about doing business, you know, with the right people. I was talking to Paul Preston, the founder of Aqua Tots, and he has a very big international footprint as well. And he was saying, you know, culture transcends culture. Like, people love their kids in India. People love their kids in Pakistan. Like, that is the things that you can bond, you can learn, and you can create business over. You know, it's funny that you say, you know, I have friends all over the world, because that's kind of happened with me too with franchising. I ended up on a lot of mission trips with franchising, a lot of, you know, marketing trips, ended up meeting people all over the place. And then one time I got stranded. My friend and I got stranded in Sweden, and all the flights were canceled. All the flights were delayed. And, you know, foreign country, 2 girls, we're like, what do we do? And I'm like, oh, wait. And so I called this girl up that I had met through franchising, and I was like, I'm stuck. And she's like, y'all come over to my house. I'll come pick you up.
Awesome.
So, you know, something like that. It's really great to see, you know, as cliche as it is, the franchise family truly is, you know, one of a kind.
Yeah.
Now, jumping over to esports. So I don't know a lot about it. I am a big sports person. Whole family, dad went to UCLA. I played professional basketball. Like, I'm all about the in-person sports.
Wow. Okay.
But my son loves video games, loves competition, but and I mean, he's young. He's only 6, but, you know, he doesn't find a lot of passion out on the field, but he really thrives in that kind of more intimate setting. I don't want to say behind a screen because it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
So when I told him about, who I was talking to, because I always show them the websites of the people I'm talking about, the reason they have to be quiet for an hour.
Yeah.
He instantly fell in love and said, "That's where I want to go. Those are my best friends." Like, I'm like, well, you don't know these people in the picture, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so talk to me a little bit about the industry and what's the point? I think you're going to have people, I'm sure, that have the stereotype of, that's terrible, they should get out and exercise and play. And then you've got the people like on my side that are like, this is a great intersection for passion and physical, ability, or things of that nature.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with the people who say you should get outside and play. So a couple things about me in terms of esports. I love when people tell me that, because I go, oh, that's great. My kids play 3 sports a year. They play, or 4, club baseball, soccer. I've got football practice tonight. I coach baseball. I coach soccer. Like, we're outside all the time,
We're
right?
on the go, my friend.
On the go.
On the go.
Yeah. And it's not either or. So when parents tell me that, I tell them this is not a competition. I mean, and the other thing is, I don't play video games, Madeline. So a lot of people, when they hear me talk, because I probably talk about esports more than anybody in the country in terms of like franchising and stuff like that.
Sure.
And they all assume I did this because, I loved Halo, and so therefore I should. And I have to tell them I don't play video games, like, at all. But what I do appreciate is I value the people who play video games, because for them it's very serious and it's fun and it's a way to connect and build relationships and learn things, right? So what parents are terrified of, which sometimes you should be, is their kids sitting in front of a screen for 12 hours at a time, not eating properly, not eating at all, not exercising, those kind of things. That's a parenting issue. That's not a video game issue, right? I mean, I have people tell me this, and then their kids over there watching an iPad or a phone or whatever. I mean, they have a device in their hand all the time, so they can argue these points, but yet practically speaking, they do that so their kids will be quiet. That is the truth. That is what parents do. So it is the time that we live in. It's not going to go away. They are going to play. But if we look at the positive things, which is how I looked at it, of what is actually happening when people game or they play we call it esports, if they're gaming, whether it's Fortnite or Minecraft or Roblox, like your son is probably doing, or whether it's Call of Duty or whether it's Valorant or something like that maybe some older people are doing, or FIFA or any of these games. What they're doing is they're entering into competition the same way that you playing basketball entered into competition. It's the same psyche. So the difference, the thing is, when people play video games, as opposed to like sitting and just watching TV, they're playing them to win. Like, that's why they are playing. So they're not playing to lose. So they're trying to get better. They're trying to acquire more skills, and they're trying to achieve things that people who are people like to be with like-minded people, right? So you grew up playing basketball, you want to hang out with your basketball friends. That's it. Right. So people play video games, they do the same kind of thing. So I took that idea and I thought, you know what? This is when I started this. You know what? When people think about people playing video games, they think it's the kid in the hoodie in the basement that will not come out. Right. That is not who is playing video games. When I started Contender Esports, the average gamer in the United States was 34 years old, had 2 kids, and owned a house.
That's literally my husband, even though he's 42 and he owns a house.
Yeah. It's just
before you go, I have to tell you, he was playing, I don't know, one of the shooting games where they talk trash with the headset.
Yep.
And I guess our neighbor, who is the same situation as my husband, was playing once, and the guy goes, "Oh, I bet you're 20-year-olds in your mom's basement right now." And he's like, "Joke's on you, I'm 40 in my own basement."
Yeah. It's so that it's a funny thing that even though everybody thinks this, they think of the teenage kid, the 15-year-old kid with the hoodie in the back, because that's what they see picture of. But statistically, we know in this country, they are adults who are playing these games. They have kids, they have homes, they have mortgages, they have responsibility, but yet they game. And everybody that I tell that to is like, there's no way that's true. And I'm like, that is true. So when I looked at building the franchise, you think about branding and all these kinds of things. I'm like, I'm not going to call it some like gaming name. I'm not going to do it. I built the franchise like on my laptop, tapping away while I'm doing some other things in my basement before I go to class or a coffee and work. And I thought, you know what? I was actually watching. You'll appreciate this. I was watching a show on Prime, on Amazon Prime, called All or Nothing. It's like these sports shows, right? And
Yep.
I was watching one about Michigan football. Which is, or, 6 o'clock in the morning every day. I'm sitting there watching stuff, and I'm watching the locker rooms, and I'm watching the stuff, and I'm like, you know what? We need to build a concept that celebrates the skill levels of what these gamers are doing, and really encourage them to be the best that they can be in whatever they want to do, and provide really good mentoring. That's why I called it Contender Esports. There's nothing to do. Contender is the whole idea that we know you're here to win. Like, we recognize that and we value that. And so when you come to Contender Esports, what we want to do, and we teach our staff this, is we want that you to make that the best 2 hours of their life when they come in. I don't care if they're 6 years old or 47 years. It doesn't make any difference. We want you to know that we think what you're doing is important. Now, we started out with that concept, Madeline. That has changed a lot because obviously with COVID and things like that, behavioral patterns of customers have changed and all those types of things. And our emphasis, yes, it is for casual gaming. That's still a part of what we do. We provide tournaments. We have 2 or 3 tournaments a week in all of our locations. We do national tournaments. We do all these kinds of things. But we're STEM accredited. People don't realize that. So we use video games to teach science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We just got done with 24 camps we ran over the summer. Kids coming in using all kinds of different things. I was asked about 2 months ago to speak at an event here, a big business event for a whole bunch of CEOs in Springfield, called the 417 Think Summit. And I presented this idea to our city kind of along these lines, like, why does Springfield, Missouri, why should you care about video games? And I gave them this word that I'm sure you're familiar with, but I said the reason is because of tech fluency. Mm-hmm. They all looked at me like, tech fluency. I said, think about what happens to a kid from the time they're 3 years old to the time they're 17 years old. They're picking up their phone, they're picking up a tablet, they're learning these skills. And I laid the whole thing out of what happens to a kid and the things that they are learning, not just how to play, but how to build things, how to buy skins. That's crypto, basically. How to buy skins, how to sell things in the marketplace. They're learning networking, not just people in the United States, but around the world. They're learning how to overcome challenges. They're learning how to deal with defeat. They're learning how to negotiate. They're learning how to sometimes build PCs. Sometimes they're learning how to build little apps and little software. I said, the reason why every company in our city and in your city is a tech company, at the end of the day, they have to do technology. You're going to have to hire tech people from somewhere. So rather than us pulling people from outside of Springfield, why don't we invest in what people already love in this city, which is video games, and have those people realize, oh my goodness, these big companies care about what we're doing. Guess what? They're going to go to work for you. Mm-hmm. And they're going to get trained 100% free by playing video games. You don't have to do anything for them. They're going to know more than you know. You just hire them. So rather than pushing them away, pull them in and invest in tech fluency. And I think that's what every city in America should do.
I love that. And it's a much more complex way of saying, lean in. I'm not a fan of the lean in kind of saying, but and it goes beyond, if you can't, beat them, join them type thing, because you're right. Every kid, everybody in America is constantly learning this tech. And, my son now, who he has his tablet and he can get on my phone and stuff. And, the other day I was like, can you help your sister with her tablet? I don't know what she wants. I can't figure it out. And part of me went in my head and I was like, oh, am I officially old? That old person that doesn't know tech. Yeah. Now, my dad worked for Apple. So I grew up as a tech head. I pride myself on knowing tech. So I was like a little hurt about it. I was like, am I old and not learning new stuff? And then I realized, I was like, it's not me not knowing how, it's just that they're learning a different process, a different procedure, a different tech. And there's so many different streams now. It's not just, I got to go help Nana with her PC that she can't turn on. It's like you said, it's apps, it's gaming, it's, tablets, phones. It's just a huge dynamic of tech that, collides with absolutely every business and everything we're doing, including franchising. That if you're simply not a tech company that also is good at franchising, you're probably not going to be in, some of those top lists or top franchises
Yeah.
or top businesses, because businesses thrive on tech. And
Yeah.
Brett, we're coming up on time, but I want to focus on salessystem.ai, because
Yeah.
I think that this kind of brings it all together. So while I've never been a broker, I used to work with brokers and consultants to help them drive leads. I've helped companies say, should we, bring them on as a client? And, I work for a marketing agency, but I'm also team no marketing agency. I completely see all sides of it. And the truth is, unless the broker networks are really helping them with leads, or there's money you can pay and get leads, it is extremely difficult
Yeah.
to find those, to nurture them, and then also pass them off. I get a lot of franchises saying, Maddie, will you come on and consult? Will NetSertive come on? And we want to have you guys be accountable for numbers of new offices signed. And I always say, well, hold on, let's break this down, because I can bring in a lead. I can bring in 100 leads. That's on you to close it. And if you're not going to close it, I'm not going to take the hit for that.
That's
So
right.
talk to me about how you've, developed this. In essence, it's kind of an FSO, but I think it goes a little beyond that. So, give us kind of where the growth footprint is,
Yeah.
and what you guys are really doing in the space there.
Yeah. So, and you mean particularly for brokers, is that right?
Well, no, just in general.
And in general, yeah.
Yeah.
There's really two sides of the coin for us. There is the training of the brokers. And basically what I tell them is, look, I'm going to take everything that I know that I've done for 15 years, and I'm going to lay it all out for you. So, we built all this course stuff. It was somebody saying, Brett, you better brain dump all this stuff, because if you knock your head on something, you've not told anybody how you've done all this. So I spent months not with the intention of doing SSAI. I just brain dumped it, and it turned into training. I mean, it's a massive amount of training, step by step by step. This is exactly how I build a franchise, or how I sell a franchise, or how the whole thing. So it's all in there. We packaged it nicely all together. And then for the brokers, basically what we say is the two challenges that you have is, and I asked them, is this true or not? One is lead acquisition, right? How do I get leads? I don't mean buying them from portals and things like that. I mean something that you can control, that the mechanics of. We will teach you those skills. We'll set it all up with you. You will never have to buy a lead from anyone ever again. And they're all like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, no. And I tell them, how are you doing it now? They tell me, and the amounts of money they spend. I said, you figure out what that money is and put it away for vacation, because you're never going to have to spend this money again. As soon as I'm done with you, you'll never have to do it again. I promise you. So, which is true. This is how I've done it for 15 years. Mm-hmm. So we teach them everything from how to build all their marketing, to get candidates from anywhere in the world, as you know, from anywhere in the world, and then to qualify them before they ever get into a meeting with them, so that they're not getting, because that's always the idea, right? I can get leads, but are they qualified? We have a very specific system that, to be honest with you, I've never believed why everybody doesn't do it like this, but it works. It's amazing. So we don't get on any meetings with anybody unless they know 100% about our brand, and it's not from sending PDFs and all this kind of thing. There's clever ways that we do this. So leads come in, everything's completely automated. You're not doing anything, but people are being contacted. They're hearing your voice. They're seeing your stuff, all this kind of stuff. It's not a piece of software. I didn't build software to do this. There's not one piece of franchise software or any software in the world that will do all these things great. Some of them will do a little bits and pieces of it, but nothing will do it great. So we build this structure for the brokers to get the leads, to get them qualified, to get into a meeting like this with a candidate that's already qualified. They already know about the brand. They get them to the point. Usually a meeting's like 30 minutes. They'll get an application. We work out the FDD thing with them. We do FDD reviews. The days of getting, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but the days of getting in meetings with people for them to review the questions on their FDD with a franchisor, which is basically take a hammer and hit me in the foot, because I have no idea how those they take hours.
I have done that, and you're so right. I would just dread them every time.
It's the worst. So everybody, I just have one more question. And that goes on, through infinity. So our FDD review meetings are about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe. Every question they have from that 250 page or 350 page FTD document his answer in full personally. But it's not happening in that meeting. We have other ways to do this thing. So we teach the brokers, how do you do this for specific brands? And then how do you take them all the way through closing so that you are not depending on a franchisor to close for you? Because the lead acquisition is the big issue. The other big issue, which I mentioned previously, is you work so hard as a broker to get a lead. You're so panicked. I finally got one. I got a brand. I send the lead to the brand, and then it's off to oblivion. I have no control over my financial future at that point. And I've asked brokers, does that scare you? And they go, no one's ever asked me that. And it's terrifying. And I go, all right, let's fix that. It never needs to be terrifying. You can control this whole process without having to depend at all on the franchisor, but make sure that you're represent the franchisor's face and voice and everything else is the forefront of what you're doing. And you can take them all the way to closing. Now, I'm going to say, do I have a couple minutes left?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to say something that's going to make everybody mad, but it's okay. The worst thing that a broker can ever say to a franchisor is, hey, just so you know, I represent 400 brands. And to me as a franchisor, I'm like, well, that's not impressive at all, because there's no chance you're ever going to understand my brand. I need somebody to represent me, not 400 brands. And every broker I say that to is like, well, because they think it's like the feather in their cap, right? Like, well, now I've got 300 brands. No franchisor in this country wants to hear that from a broker. They want to hear somebody come to them and say, you know what, Madeline, I love your brand and I'm going to fight for you. Every lead that I get is going to be for you. I'm going to understand your brand. I'm going to communicate your brand. I'm going to market your brand. It's not going to be about me. It's going to be about you. My name's not even on the thing. I'm going to talk it up. I'm going to work with you to get all the information I need to. And from time to time, I will come to you and ask you for questions or information. I will not bug you. Once I have it, it's locked in with me. I'm going to take them all the way through until I say, Madeline, you can expect this wire into your account. Now, if I say that to you, Madeline, instead of, hey, I'd love to represent your brand. I represent 400 brands. Which one's better, right? So now, again, I realize I just made everybody mad, but that's okay. Because when we think about that because I'm the customer for the broker, the franchisor is, right? So you have to appeal to this. So what we do with our brokers is we teach them, I don't care if you have 300, that's totally fine. But and I say to the broker, let me ask you, even though you have all these, at the end of the day, when you have a good lead, I bet you have 3 or 4 that you really hope they buy from. And they go, yeah. And I go, I can tell you why. It's because they've got a good brand that will close. And here's the second reason, and let's be really honest, because they pay the highest commission. And they go, well, yeah, that's true. And I go, all right. So now we're all being honest. So now let's help you do that. Okay. So we rip all the crud away and we help our franchise brokers. They can still represent all those, but we help them to focus on the core business, on the 80% that they need anyway, and to fight for those brands that they love. And when they do it, then we go, look, if you get 5 brands, 6 brands that you really focus everything in on, just talk with people interested in those. How do you do that? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. How we do our leads, right? We should sell 3 for each brand a year, 5 for each brand a year. You're freaking loaded. I mean, come on. But if you're trying to scatterbrain this thing all over the place with 400 brands and hoping you can connect this and hoping it's never going to work out. So that's brokers. We teach them that entire process. Franchisors, that was an accident because I went to a friend of mine who owned a franchise and I said, look, I'm doing this for brokers and I know you have a franchise, but you don't have any units. Would this help if I taught you how to do this as a franchisor?
Right.
And I showed them everything. Matter of fact, when we share with people what we do, there's a video, it's 9 minutes long. I sent it to people. I said, there's no secrets. I'm going to show you 100% of what we're going to do for you. And I'm not selling it to you. If you want it, then we can talk about that. And if it's not interesting, we don't have to. But so I showed that to a franchisor and he said to me, that is perfect. That's exactly what I need. And I go, right. Great. And he goes, will you just do it for me? And I go, what? Like, I didn't understand because I thought I was helping him by never having a marketing company, never having a broker. But the franchisor, what he said was, I'd rather just have you do it for me. So that was insight into the fact that even though somebody can do it,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of franchisors would rather have somebody that has the experience, facilities, and all those kinds of things. Like, we can do it very quickly and very powerfully. So every franchisor that I have spoken with about this, I always tell them the same thing. I can teach you how to fish. You'll never need a broker again, never need no. Every single one, without exception, every single one has said, that's wonderful. Will you do it for me? And so that's how we became, we started representing franchisors. So my guys who work for me, we have a policy. They're only allowed to represent 6. That's it. And they're 100% with those 6. I mean, they know their families, they know their kids, they know everything about them. They text us all day long that, like, they know we are in this with them. But we don't just do like basic stuff. We do all the video editing, all the audio editing. We write books for them. I'm not kidding. We do everything we possibly can do. If we find gaps in their franchise, maybe in their operations manual or maybe in their training, or something, we'll talk to them about it. If they're getting ripped off by some, legal counsel, or their real estate agency isn't good, or this or that, we'll put them in contact with. If they don't have funding, I'll get them people to fund their franchise. And they go, why are you doing all this for me? It has nothing to do with the business. And I go, yeah, it does. Because if I can help you be as solid as I will sell more of these for you. And so everything I have from 15 years is yours. You come with me, it's all yours. So they get a whole team, and they get a personal commitment from me that we're going to fight for them. And that's how we train. And that's how we represent franchisors.
Brett, I appreciate what you're doing in the space. I think that there's a few people out there, you're including you, who really understand that it's not about gatekeeping secrets. It's about making everyone better, and making everyone around you better is just going to increase business growth and wealth, whether it's financial, whether it's personal, for everyone. So as much as I preach that there really isn't a silver bullet in franchise marketing, I think you might just be that for a lot of people. Yeah. So, if people want to contact you about, Contender or SSAI, where should they go?
Yeah, it's easy. Just use my personal email address. So it's my first name, Brett, at Brett, my middle initial C, Payne.com. Brett at BrettCPayne.com. And I'll do you one better. I'll give you my personal cell phone. They can text me. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 417-209-0487. And if you text me, I will text you right back. You'll see. Like, some people test me. They're like, is this really real? I go, yeah, it says Brett. Sometimes I text them back and I'm like, just so you know, I'll leave them a voice message. You should do this. Every broker and every franchisor should do this as well. If you're texting people back, they think it's a bot. You use your iPhone and leave a voice message and say, hey, Steve, I know you think this is a bot. This is Brett. I'm hanging out over here on a soccer field right now. I just want to let you know I'm legit. I'm sitting in Springfield, Missouri right now. I'm going to go back to texting you, but I just don't want you to think this was weird. So everybody should do that. So if somebody contacts me, you will hear back from me, I promise.
That's great. And, that is relationship 101, which we all know is the foundation of franchising. So you heard it here first. Text Brett. Don't text me, because I'm the worst texter. I will just literally not get back to you and be like, oh, I thought I responded. Yeah. But we are, we'll see some great things in the future. Brett, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Madeline. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by NetCertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netcertive.com.